Welcome to the Math Center at Grantham University. In this lesson, we will give you a quick overview of Week 2 of your Math 105 course, and we will briefly go over several basic math concepts for the week. Here are some of those concepts. Equation basics. An equation says that two things are equal. It will have an equal sign like this. 7 plus 2 equals 10 minus 1. This equation is true because 7 plus 2 is 9, which is equal to 10 minus 1. In algebra, variables are introduced like in the equation below. 4x minus 6 equals 2 minus 2x. To solve an equation with variables, you want to isolate the variable by whatever mathematical means necessary. You will want all numbers to one side and your variable to the other side of the equation, and you will perform the easier mathematical operations first. Basically, you will perform the opposite mathematical operations to each side. So, if you have a negative 6 on the left side, to get rid of it, you will add a 6. In an equation, what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other. So you will have to add 6 to the right side. Repeat with the 2x, since we want that to go to the other side, by adding 2x from both. Once you have all variables on one side and all numbers on the other, you can combine like terms. Then you are ready for the last mathematical operation. Since the 6 is attached to the x by multiplication, we need to divide it by 6 to isolate the x. Remember, what you do to one side, you must do to the other, so divide the other side by 6 as well. Now you have your solution, which you will want to check by plugging in your value and seeing if it will make both sides of the equation equal. Slope. The slope is a measure of the steepness of a line or a section of a line connecting two points. Think of the pitch of a roof, the incline on a treadmill, or even the grade on a mountain road. Slope is determined by the rise over run, where the rise is the distance traveled on the y-axis and the run is the distance traveled horizontally, the x-axis. Slopes can be positive numbers, which graphically look like a line going up from left to right, negative, a line going down, 0, a horizontal straight line, or undefined, which is a straight vertical line which indicates there was no horizontal change between 2 points in a line. You can determine the slope of a line by looking at its linear equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. This is called the slope-intercept form because m is the slope and b gives the y-intercept. You already know the slope represents the incline, rise over run, and now you will see that the y-intercept, represented by the b, represents the y-coordinate at which the line crosses the y-axis. Let's take a look at this equation and see how we can graph it. Y equals 2x plus 1. We would start by plotting the y-intercept, plus 1, and then from there count 2 steps up on the axis, that's the rise, and 1 over, horizontally, that's the run. It is 1 over because the 2 has an understood 1 at the bottom, since 2 is the same as 2 over 1. Also notice that the distance between any 2 points on the graph will have the same ratio of the change in the y direction over the change in the x. Now you trace a line that goes over those 2 points. Sometimes you will be asked to create an equation based on a given set of points and/or a set of points in the slope. If that's the case, you can visit the Math Center or check your textbook for details on how to do that. Another related concept in Week 2 is the x and the y-intercepts. You have already seen that the y-intercept is where your line crosses the y-axis, so it probably stands to reason that the x-intercept is the point at which the line crosses the x-axis. Take a look at the following graph. The x-intercept is located at -2, 0, and the y-intercept is 0, 3. These are written as an ordered pair, where the first number represents the x-coordinate and the second represents the y. This week, you may be asked to complete a table. In this case, you take the x values given on the table and evaluate your linear equation for those values. Remember that the ordered pair always has the x written first and then the y. As mentioned in the video for Week 1, there are many ways to factor equations. Now we will show you one method when dealing with some of the more basic quadratic equations. You will recognize these because they will have 3 terms. one term with a squared variable, one term with a variable of exponent 1, and one plain number. Once you see this, it is very likely you will be able to factor by constructing two sets of parentheses and factoring the first term, and then factoring the last term, so that when those factors are added or subtracted, they will give you the middle term as the result. This example is just a brief overview of how to do this, so for more information, please visit the Math Center. The FOIL method is actually the opposite of factoring. We are undoing what we factored and returning to the original equation. Let's take a look at the equation we just factored. If we multiplied the first terms, then the outer terms, then the inner terms, and finally the last terms, we will see how slowly we are returning back to where we started when we factored. Once you combine like terms, we should have the exact equation from the start. The last concept we will cover in this short video are complex numbers, which are also known as imaginary numbers. When dealing with imaginaries, you gain something, the ability to deal with negatives inside of square roots, which you have not been able to do until now. These numbers are denoted by the letter I, where I represents the square root of a -1. So, if you have to take the square root of, say, -9, factor that number out to -1 times 9, and now you can take the root of 9, which is 3, and then the square root of -1, which is I. If you need to perform mathematical operations with complex numbers, just treat the I as you would any variable. For example, 2i plus 3i would be 5i. For other math basic skills, you can watch any of our other Math Bootcamp series videos or any of the additional videos which can be accessed within the Math Center page in your Blackboard homepage. If you have any questions, please contact us at the Math Center or the Learning Center. And this concludes our video for week 2 of Math 105.